On Friday, Donald Trump posted, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings." How dare you, sir? Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go f*** yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to stop whatever you are doing, turn off the background noise, and listen to me with absolute unwavering focus. Because last night, great American illusion was finally shattered. Not by a special counsel, not by a political rival, but by a comedian armed with the one thing a con man fears most, the receipts. For over half a century, Donald Trump has bullied the world with the myth of his own unparalleled intellect. He has used the name of the Wharton School of Finance like a royal decree, demanding that we bow down to his super genius brain. Even now, sitting back in the Oval Office as the 47th President of the United States, he continues to wield his supposed high IQ as a weapon, calling his critics stupid, low energy, and mentally unfit. He dared the world to question his brilliance, confident that his money and his lawyers had buried the truth forever. But last night on the stage of the Ed Sullivan Theater, Stephen Colbert didn't just question the myth, he detonated it. In a segment that took exactly 60 seconds from start to finish, Colbert unsealed the actual physical academic records from the University of Pennsylvania.
Next 10 months, the gloves are off. I can finally speak unvarnished truth to power and say what I really think about Donald Trump, starting right now.
And the genius myth was ended on live television. The atmosphere in the studio was electric. The president, feeling particularly invincible after a week of chaotic executive orders, had spent the morning on social media bragging about his intellect. "No one has a brain like mine," he posted. Wharton, top of the class, a true 180 IQ. The late-night losers could never understand my genius. He thought he was untouchable. He thought the bully pulpit protected him from the facts. To prove his dominance, he even had his press office arrange a live phone call into the Late Show, fully intending to berate Stephen Colbert on his own turf. Trump's voice boomed through the studio speakers, dripping with that familiar defensive arrogance. "I'm the smartest guy to ever sit in this office, Stephen," Trump bragged, the audience listening in stunned silence. "I aced everything. Wharton, the hardest school in the world. I was the best they ever saw. You people just read jokes off a prompter. I have a brain that writes history." He thought he was winning. He thought he was the alpha in the room. But Stephen Colbert wasn't laughing. He didn't do a monologue about the news of the day. He didn't dance with the band. He walked directly to his desk, his face set in a mask of cold prosecutorial resolve. He looked into the camera, and the studio audience instantly fell dead silent. They knew something historic was about to happen. "Mr. President," Colbert began, his voice devoid of its usual comedic LLT, cutting through the bragging like a scythe. "You spent a lot of time talking about your grades. You tell the American people that you were the smartest man to ever walk through the doors of the Wharton School."
Donald Trump had an answer for that too. "I think it's fake news, but if he did that, I guess we'll have to compare IQ tests, and I can tell you who is going to win." Scored a 120. It's above average, not genius, but still pretty.
"You have spent millions of dollars hiding your transcripts, threatening to sue any institution that dared to release them." Colbert paused, reaching into his jacket pocket. "But the thing about secrets is that they have an expiration date. And today, thanks to an anonymous archivist who believes the American people deserve the truth, yours just expired." The silence on the phone line was immediate. The bragging stopped. You could almost hear the panic setting in from Pennsylvania Avenue. That's private property," Trump stammered, his voice suddenly jumping an octave, losing all its bravado. "It's a fake document. It's illegal. Don't you open that, Colbert. I'll have the FCC shut you down." Colbert ignored him. He pulled out a sealed manila envelope bearing the faded official crest of the University of Pennsylvania. The collective gasp from the audience sucked the oxygen right out of the room. Colbert didn't hesitate. He looked up at the studio clock, which began a massive 60-second countdown on the screen behind. "1 minute, Colbert said. "That's all it takes to dismantle a 50-year lie." He ripped the envelope open. The sound of tearing paper echoed through the microphones like a gunshot. He slid out the yellowed, carbon-copied transcript from 1968. He put on his reading glasses, his eyes scanning the document before he held it up to the camera. The 4K resolution caught every faded typewriter keystroke. "Let's look at the super genius record," Colbert said, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "Donald J. Trump, Wharton School, undergraduate. Let's look at the core classes. Microeconomics, C-. Business law, D. Statistics. Colbert paused, letting the silence hang heavy, forcing the president to listen to his own failure. Statistics. F. Failed. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs. The man who claims to understand the global economy better than anyone failed. Basic statistics. But Colbert wasn't finished. The clock was at 30 seconds. You weren't the top of your class. Donald Colbert continued turning the page and reading directly from the dean's notes at the bottom. According to this, you didn't even make the dean's list. You graduated without honors. In fact, the academic advisor's note right here says, student shows a profound lack of intellectual curiosity, struggles with basic comprehension, and relies entirely on family influence rather than academic rigor. Colbert looked up, his eyes piercing through the lens, speaking directly to the man sitting in the White House. You didn't earn a degree, sir. Your father bought you a piece of paper. You are not a genius. You are a C student with a rich daddy and a loud mouth. And you have spent your entire life terrified that someone would finally figure out that you are intellectually empty. 15 seconds left on the clock. You're a liar. Trump shrieked over the phone, his voice cracking into a desperate wail. I was the best. This is a witch hunt. Hang up the phone. Hang it up. The line went dead. The President of the United States had fled from a piece of paper. 0 seconds. Colbert said as the buzzer sounded quietly in the background. He took off his glasses and dropped the transcript onto his desk with a heavy thud. Time's up, Donald. The illusion is over. You can bully the press and you can buy the politicians, but you cannot change the grade. You are exactly who we always knew you were. For the generation watching at home, the generation that values hard work, that respects actual education, and that knows you cannot fake competence when the chips are down. This was the ultimate vindication. Donald Trump built a golden tower on a foundation of academic sand. He tried to sell the world a myth of intellectual supremacy, but Stephen Colbert brought the receipts. In 60 seconds flat, the biggest ego in Washington was reduced to a failing grade on a dusty piece of paper. He ran away from the clock. He ran away from the document. And he ran away from the truth. The emperor has no clothes. And as it turns out, he doesn't have the grades either. Shame on the fraud. And thank God the file is finally